What's up guys, I'm BTC, welcome back to the Respawn where I answer your questions. Today we're talking new mini events, reworking Widowmaker's Ultimate, and more. Today's video is sponsored by Audible. You can get a free audiobook to keep forever and support the channel by using the link down below. Today I'm recommending Steel World, which is the very first book in the Undying Mercenary series. It's a military sci-fi, there's lots of cool tech, and the soldiers can never die. A new cloning process allows them to keep coming back and continue the fight. It's got some really interesting concepts in here. Check it out. You can get this book or any of the others in the Audible library for free using the link down below. First question of the day, do you think that the workshop needs some changes? If so, why? Well, they're constantly making changes and improvements on the PTR, adding new rule sets, adding new functionality, and of course bug fixes, so they're already handling a lot of that stuff. But for the overall improvement, I think what they need to do, and I've talked about this in a previous video, is allow the creators of these game modes to publish whatever game mode that they've made, which kind of locks it into a list, and then people can search that list. Are they looking for something fun? Are they looking for something Battle Royale or the gun game? Or are they looking for the Diva Pokemon stuff or an aim trainer, whatever it is that they're looking for? Have it all in this big list of published game modes. And then also allow players to rate those game modes, so they can give it 1 to 5 stars or whatever mechanism they want to use, so that way at a glance you can tell, oh, this one is really popular, this one isn't so popular, that sort of deal. Really, I think that's pretty much the main thing that they need to add to the workshop. Next up, what do you think of a Necromancy character who can capitalize on the deaths of the enemy? Alright, so one of the very early concepts of Mora, I believe they talked about this at the BlizzCon where she was released, was they originally thought maybe they could give her a Necro ability that would be similar to Mercy's Mass Res, except it would res your teammates and they would only be there temporarily. Like they would get an extra 10 seconds or something like that, but they would be a little bit stronger than they normally would be, but they ended up scrapping that. I think what you're trying to get at here is when the enemy dies, can you resurrect the enemy? I think that could work, but remember, the AI in this game is really, really bad, so you really can't have like the enemy getting rezzed and then just running around and attacking stuff. It has to be more like Torbjorn's turret or Bob, where they just kind of stand in place and they attack whatever happens to be closest. That kind of ability is a little weird because, again, you have to wait for the enemy to die before you can use it. So until that point, like at the beginning of the fight, it's completely worthless until someone dies. So it might be a little difficult to balance. How's the workshop going to save Overwatch? I don't think it is. I mean, it certainly breathed a little bit of new life into the game, but it's not going to fix the things that are wrong with competitive. And that's really the heart of the game, is the competitive is where the problems are, and until that gets fixed, then no amount of extra game modes are ever going to fix that. What is the most important skill in Overwatch to practice and improve upon? That would be learning to not die, which is effectively game sense. So many players put a lot of emphasis on having gold eliminations, gold damage, gold healing, and they just completely ignore the number of deaths that they've had in a match. Remember, even the best DPS in the world is doing 0 damage while waiting to respawn. And the more time you're waiting to respawn, the less effective you're being in the match overall. You can't do damage, you can't block, you can't heal, none of that stuff while you're waiting to respawn. So I could talk about game sense for an hour or more. Really, it boils down to don't overextend, right? Don't go chasing enemies when you really should be staying back with your group. Don't stay in a fight for longer than you need to. If you are on the attacking team, you push in, and immediately 2 of your team get taken out, that's when you need to fall back. The rest of your team needs to fall back, wait for those 2 to respawn, and then push again as 6. If you're trying to win a 4v6 or a 3v6 after your initial push fails, you're just wasting time, and when you eventually die, like, you're just not doing anything. You're going to end up staggering your respawn with your teammates, and then everyone starts trickling, and it's just bad. So just be more aware of your situation. Don't take the unnecessary risks, and usually, this isn't always the case, but usually not dying is better than getting an elimination. What about a grappling hook that only latches onto enemies? this would definitely work. There's a character in Dota 2 called Clockwork who has exactly this. He's a more tanky melee character. What he does is he throws the grappling hook, it locks onto an enemy, he pulls himself in, and then he puts up this little prison cage thing made out of cogs, and it keeps him and the enemy inside that area. And then since he's melee, he can just keep hitting him. He also has other abilities that help him and deal damage as well. So it would definitely work. Now, in Overwatch, you would have to have this character either be tanky, or it could also work as a flanking DPS. You can try to move towards the enemy backline, you hook onto their enemy Ana or the Zenyatta, you deal a bunch of damage, and then you try to get out. So it could work, you would just have to build the character around it. Should Baptiste be able to heal himself with a secondary fire? No, absolutely not. If you look at the other support characters, they can heal themselves using a slow over time heal, or something that has a fairly long cooldown, but none of them can just constantly, massively heal themselves just almost non-stop. If Baptiste could just aim at the ground and just hold down right-click, nothing would ever kill him short of an instant one-hit thing from Doomfist or Widowmaker or a Hanzo. Other than that, he would be virtually unkillable, so no, you can't have that heal himself. What do you think of the Havanna Map? I haven't played it too much. I think I really need to see when it's in the competitive game mode in order to see just how balanced or how many issues there are, because even with quick play or in the arcade, you know, you never really have good team comps, so you can't quite judge whether or not there's going to be issues. So you just have to kind of wait till it enters comp mode for that. What do you think of an Orisa weapon that spins up faster the longer you hold the button down? There are other games that have weapons exactly like this. I think it could definitely work in Overwatch. I don't think Orisa needs to have it. I think they could give it to a new character. As a Widow main, how do I get out of Diamond? There are two main things. First, you need to know when to switch, because you're going to have players that are way better at Genji or Winston or Diva, and they're going to be able to shut you down a lot more often. If that's happening, then just switch off the character. The second thing is your aim needs to be unbelievably good in order to be effective at that higher rank. Because in Bronze through Plat and even into Diamond, your enemies are going to have very slow, predictable movement. Sometimes they'll even just stand still and let you hit them. So once you get into Masters and GM, you're going to start finding that their movement is a lot better, a lot more unpredictable, and in order to land those hits, you just need to have unbelievably good aim, which means you need to practice. Now, thankfully, on the PTR, there are some really good practice maps for the flicks and all that sort of stuff that you can be practicing. I talked about it in a previous video, you can go and check that out, and over time, those PTR maps, well, eventually the workshop will get onto the live version of the game, but over time, those will get even better, but you just need to have really amazingly good aim and just know when to switch. If there were new events, what would they be? St. Patrick's Day, 4th of July? So, Blizzard has talked about this, and it seems like they're not willing to have any new major events. They're just going to kind of stick with what they've got. But I've talked about this in the past. They could very easily add a lot more mini events throughout the year, like what we had with Ana and Diva before that. You have these mini events that last for a week or 2 weeks, and you could have them centered around a single character, and you give away a couple of sprays, maybe some voice lines, an emote, or a new epic or a legendary skin, or something like that, right? You can have all these different things, and it's just like this mini event, and you could have that for St. Patrick's Day. You could have something for Moira. For the 4th of July, you could have something for Soldier 76. I mean, there's all these different events that you could have throughout the year, and you can just focus on one character and do something small, and I think that would be fine. I think that would be a really, really good idea. Alright, next up, speaking of Moira, can Moira heal through barriers? For friendly barriers, yes. Enemy barriers, no. Originally, she could heal through enemy barriers, and then for some reason they nerfed it. I don't know why. It was not really a good idea on their part, but they nerfed it, and now you can't. So friendly, yes. Enemy, no. Do you think Lucio is still a viable pick after the nerf? Yes, absolutely. His pick rate is still incredibly high. He's still one of the best characters in the game. He has a strong ultimate, he has area effect healing, and he's the only one in the game that can speed boost your team. As long as he is the only one that can provide that speed boost, he is always going to be effective because there is no alternative. He's the only one that can do that thing. Do you think Widow's ult could use some work? Yes. Recently they nerfed it so it goes away when she dies, which makes sense, but the trade-off they gave was, well, now you get to see the enemy health, which is largely worthless in most cases. So rather than just doing an across-the-board damage buff, I think what they could do is they make it so that armor no longer reduces damage while under the effect of the Widowmaker ult. Think of it as kind of seeing the weak spot in the enemy. So when Widowmaker pops her ultimate, any enemy, like Reinhardt or Orisa, that has armor, they no longer get that reduction for the duration. Now, it's not going to be a massive increase in damage, because it's only, you know, an extra 3 per hit or whatever, but I think it would be that, you know, just a little bit extra, and it would be kind of more effective as an anti-tank thing, and I think it definitely could work. Do you think a support character that can lower the cooldown of teammates' abilities would be viable in Overwatch? Yes, definitely, but it would have to be something like a percentage-based thing, where it speeds up how fast the cooldown goes, as opposed to just simply removing X number of seconds, or just flat out resetting it. You definitely wouldn't want to do that because it wouldn't quite work well enough. I think the percentage would be a lot better. And there's 2 characters in particular that you definitely would never want to just flat out reset their cooldowns, and that would be Mercy and Baptiste, for the res and for the immortality field. Having both of those cooldowns just suddenly available again would be way too strong. Now, if you want to see more about this, I actually made a hero concept for a support character called Isaac, who has something like this for his ultimate. If you want to check out that hero concept, I'll put that on the top of the screen and down below. But that's going to be all the questions for this week. Thank you to everyone who submitted one. Once more, if you didn't get picked, make sure you try again next week. I always post the question card on Saturdays, and it's in the community tab of my YouTube channel. And if you want to see all of the past questions from all the previous Respawn videos, you can find that in my Discord server. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.